Okay, guys. Can one of you just sum it up because yesterday's session was little more theoretical, and there are so many concepts that we talked in yesterday's session. But if you can just sum it up, no need to get into the details. But what is that we have discussed yesterday, so that I can take it up from there.
Is all related to deployment OS, but how many type of way we can deploy, which are the way of types.
Hmm. So we have discussed about different ways to deploy, like the network and standalone USB, CD, DVD, right? Different deployment scenarios we talked about, like upgrade, bare metal, refresh and replace, right? And what are the other things we discussed? What are the different formats of the image, like ISO, WIM file? We discussed about a file-based image. What is a single instance storage, right? And what else? What else we have discussed in yesterday's session?
About this zero touch installation, light touch installation, heavy, and UDI.
Yep, exactly. So we discussed about the LTI, JTI, and the UDI part, correct? So anything else?
Yes. After that, I haven't listened to the class. I left for that day.
Yeah, okay, okay.
And Manohar, I think you haven't uploaded the class, right?
Yeah, yesterday I couldn't upload it, so I didn't. I will upload both the sessions today itself.
Okay, fine.
Okay. So we have also discussed about the task sequences. Like, so first of all, we discussed about what are the default, components, like the OS component, then the hardware component, right? So OS layer, then the drivers are involved in it. We discussed about core applications, LOB applications, then the custom settings, patches, and finally restoring the user data back. So all this is included as part of a task sequence, right? So finally, towards the end of the session, I just opened the console and just showed you the operating system deployment, where you can upload images and where you can create drivers. That was just a 2 minutes of overview that I've just shown to you. So let's take it up from there. So what I'll do is, in today's class, the build and capture task sequence. Okay, once if you run the build and capture task sequence, it will take probably sometime like 40 minutes to build the machine and then capture it, another 30 minutes. So during that time, instead of wasting the time, so what I'll try to do is I'll try to first explain the basics of how to start this build and capture task sequence, and we'll start a build and capture task sequence. Okay, let it run, and meanwhile I'll explain about all the other concepts related to the same build and capture task sequence, how it is working in the background, and other components, so that I'll see if we can save some time. Otherwise, what I'll do is, typically what will happen, these OSD sessions, as I told yesterday, the lab sessions will take more time. Like once you trigger it, it might take 1.5 hour, right? So instead of waiting idle, so what I wanted to do is, if possible, I'll cover the ground today and I will start the task sequence. Okay, and then even if it is going beyond our 2 hours of session, I'll just keep the recording on. You guys can leave, right? I'll just keep the recording on, so that if there are any errors or what are the final steps, how the task sequence is completed, we can see in the recording. But we'll stop after 2 hours, right? We'll stop this session after 2 hours. Okay. So the first thing here is, what is the main SCCM server that is required to support this entire operating system deployment? So we know for software distribution, it's a distribution point, right? We know for other components, like for the reporting services point is for the reportings, right? So for each and every work what we're doing, like inventory management and other stuff, so we have a specific and dedicated server for each of those activities. Guys, just give me a minute. Hello. Yeah, guys, I'm back. Um, so for each and every component of the SCCM, we are using a specific server, right? So for operating system deployment, what is the server? So it is nothing but it's the distribution point itself, but you need to enable PXE. Okay. So the moment you enable PXE, that means the distribution point will be able to communicate with your client machine during pre-boot execution environment. Even before it is loading into operating system, even a bare metal machine should be able to contact to any server to download the boot image, right? So that is what we are going to first do. So let me do this PXE enable DP. So how do you do that? You go to administration, distribution points. So this is a DP, right? Guys, is the screen okay to you, or you want me to make it a little bigger?
Uh, yeah,
Sorry, I didn't get that, Manju.
I said that is okay for me.
Okay, sure. So on the DP, when you go to the properties, the PXE, so you have enable PXE support for clients, right? So select this enable PXE support for clients. So when you're enabling it, so it says these are the ports which are required. So let's quickly go through them. So it says for PXE requests, UDP port 67, 68, 69 and 4011 are required. And for operating system installations, you require UDP port 69, right? So if you are using Windows Firewall on this server, the configuration manager automatically configures the rules to allow these ports. Okay, if you are not using Windows Firewall, say suppose if you are using a third-party firewall, that's when you need to make sure that these ports, right? These ports are allowed. Otherwise, by default on your SCCM server, if you are using Windows Firewall, no need to worry about it because it will automatically create the inbound and outbound rules accordingly for this, right? So if you click yes, so it is going to enable the PXE support for the clients. Morning, Sai.
Morning, Manoj.
Okay. Then comes allow this distribution point to respond to incoming PXE requests, right? So whenever any client computer is requesting for a boot image, so allow this distribution point to uh, respond to those. Yes, say yes. Enable unknown computer support. So this is not required at this stage, but I'll just explain. So what will happen is in your organization, say suppose you have some 1,000 machines, right? And you wanted to use PXE boot for them to migrate them from Windows 7 to Windows 10, right? For those 1,000 machines, since they're already part of SCCM, right? They already have SCCM client agent and they are, you can see them from the SCCM console. In that case, what will happen is you can just the moment you target the operating system to the client machine, they will know to which client, which distribution point or which PXE enabled DP they have to contact, right? Because of their boundary and everything. And then even the PXE enabled DP, the DP will know, okay, this machine is part of so and so site and this machine is part of so and so boundary, and it will respond back. That's a known computer. But typically what will happen in operating system deployments, there are chances that you are going to deal with even unknown computers. That means you just bought some 50 machines, okay, brand new machines, brand new laptops, and you just connect to your corporate network and you wanted to build them, right? For which you don't have any information. So this typically will not happen in software distribution or inventory management, right? In inventory management and software distribution, you're dealing with known computers. But in operating system deployment, there are chances that you deal with unknown computers. The moment I say unknown computers, those are some laptops or some devices which are not in the SCCM console, which are not which do not have any operating system sometimes, right? They do not have any client agent. So in such cases, what we need to do is you have to make sure that enable unknown computer support, right? The moment you say enable unknown computer support, even if a brand new laptop is trying to download the boot image, your PX enable DP will provide the boot image to it. right? So in such cases, you'll go with enable unknown computer support. Morning, Amar.
Morning, Manar. Sorry, I got delayed.
Hey, no problem. So how are you feeling today? Better?
I'm better, Manar.
Good, good, good to hear that. Fine. So let me show it to you on the notepad. Guys, you haven't missed anything yet. So we just waited for you till 16. So I'm just talking about the PXE enabled distribution point. So basically what happens is for any other module that we are talking about, like software distribution or reporting services or inventory management, right? For everything we have a dedicated site server or a site system role, right? So what is that site system role for operating system? So for operating system deployments, the site system role is nothing but the same distribution point, but you need to enable PXE, right? So when you enable PXE, it will start communicating with the client machines, and it will be able to give them the boot image even before it boots in the pre-boot execution environment, right? So we are quickly looking into how to enable PXE on a DP. So I went to distribution points, right click properties to the DP and PXE. So I've enabled PXE support for clients. I've enabled this distribution point to respond to any incoming PXE request. So whenever any client computer asks for boot image, this machine should be able to respond back, right? And we are talking about enabling unknown computer support. So unknown computer support is only required if you're expecting some brand new laptops and new machines to be just connected to corporate network, and they should be able to have the operating system deployed from Sccm. If that is what you're expecting, then yes, you'll go with unknown computer support. But if you want to just build or migrate your existing Windows 7 machines to Windows 10, which are already there in SCM console, which are in the particular boundary, they have SCM client isn't installed and everything, then you don't need to go for the unknown computer support. Okay. And requires a password when computers use PXE. This is very important. As you can see, I haven't selected this. This is by default, it is selected, right? But it is not a mandatory thing. Even if somebody wants to uncheck it, they can uncheck. But I'll tell you what's the importance of this. So see, say suppose by mistake a machine, a machine gets a task sequence, and you're trying to build a machine. By mistake, an F12 was pressed or something like that, and the operating system deployment has started on that machine. So the first thing what it will check for is it will check for the PXE password. It will ask for the PXE password. If you provide the PXE password, only then it is going to proceed with the operating system deployment. So this way, if any by mistake deployments are triggered on a particular client machine, those can be stopped. Okay, so that way this will help you. I'll tell you, like for instance, that it happened long back in an organization wherein somebody had put all the the servers into the operating system deployment collection, right? On a Windows XP, I think in those days Windows XP or Windows 7, I guess probably on a Windows 7 server collection, where on that collection there is an operating system deployment task sequence targeted, and on this collection, when they've added some bunch of servers, right? So just because the servers were added, the task sequence triggered, and all these servers were rebuilt into Windows 7 machines. So this really happened in a production environment. Okay, so to avoid such cases, if you had a password, at least it would have asked these machines during the start for a PXE password, and since nobody would provide the password, it would have, it wouldn't have deployed Windows 7. So in such conditions, this will definitely help you. This is kind of a checkpoint, right? So let me have a password. I'll make it minimal, just 123. So wait a minute. I'll not get into the device affinity as of now, so we'll get into that later. But yeah, this is pretty straightforward. It says respond to PXE request on all network interfaces. So if you have any specific Ethernet cards that you don't want to allow PXE request, then you will mention allow only on these specific network drives, network cards, right? But by default, nobody will do this in production environment because um, you'll have different wide variety of machines and different network cards. You don't want to keep on specifying the each and every network card where Pixie deployment needs to be supported, right? So you'll just go ahead with the default, and Pixie server response delay. So even this is also kind of a checkpoint. Instead of having it 0 seconds, which is default, if you want, you can have a checkpoint there to avoid any immediate to give you some kind of a reaction time. So how soon the Pixie server should respond back. So if you give here 1 minute or 2 minutes, at least you will have some reaction time. You will understand, okay, this machine is going to PXE, and you can halt the process or stop the process, right? So you can always have this delay 0, or you can just increase it for your reaction time. Fine, guys. So the moment I apply, so I'm enabling PXE. So what will happen in the background is, say suppose if you don't have Windows deployment services, see, let us see if there is a Windows deployment service. I guess it's not there.
So Manohar,
Yeah, Manju.
I got one question. I'm not sure whether it is a correct question. Maybe if it is correct, then you maybe
Sure,
say
go ahead.
correct. Actually, the scenario which you said that which happened in the production area. So the task sequence for the OS, what we are going to create, uh, after doing it, then our work is done. Since development, the OS development is happened. Or still, we need to keep a task sequence. Maybe we can just temporarily disable it since the work is done, so that things will not happen. Is it any possibility like that?
Yeah, that's true. You can always have an expiry, you can disable the task sequence, and all that can be done. So there are multiple checkpoints. See, we are just making sure that wherever possible, just to tighten the security kind of, or tighten to make it more safer environment. See, sometimes what will happen if there is an ongoing Windows 10 migration. Okay, so Windows 10 migration will not happen just in one day. It will be in phases, right? So you have some 10,000 machines. So if though you have created the task sequence today, you'll be completing the migration maybe in 3 months or 6 months, because you'll not migrate all the end user machines in a single day, right? So in today you're migrating some 100 machines, tomorrow you're migrating another 100 machines, so like that. And again this month you're only concentrating on US, next month you're going to UK. So that's how you're going to do this migration for 3 to 6 months. So during this 3 to 6 months of phase, the task sequence is live, right? So nobody is going to disable the task sequence for these 6 months. It is still running live. So we are trying to keep more and more checks, not only here, even within the task sequence. Also, we can have a checkpoint just before starting the task sequence. You can have a condition to check if what is the existing operating system. If the existing operating system is client operating system, then proceed. If the existing operating system is server, then stop, right? Or else if the existing there is no existing operating system, it's a bare metal, still continue, right? So such kind of conditions can be kept even in the task sequence, but I'm just telling you one of the ways of stopping this any chaos. Clear?
Okay. Yeah. So only this is the way of putting a stop there before happen anything wrong, right?
Yeah, one of the ways. This is not the only way, this is one of the ways. Like this there are multiple. I'm just showing you one way how to stop it. So once we
Okay.
go ahead and look into the task sequence, you'll get to know.
Yeah, you can proceed.
Okay. So in these services, so currently if you say there is no Windows deployment service running, right? So why is this Windows deployment service required? So for your distribution point, what is the prerequisite? IAS, right? Similarly, for your PXE enabled DP, the prerequisite in the backend is WDS. So actually, you're supposed to go here and just like add roles and features, how you install the web server, the IAS. Similarly, you're supposed to do install WDS. But even if you don't do it as part of Pixie enablement, so what will happen is the moment you enable PXE here, it says Windows deployment services will be installed if required, right? So if it finds that the Windows deployment services are not there on this machine, it will anyways install on its own. So it's not a prerequisite anymore. Initially, during the days of Sccm 2007 or earlier versions, so we used to first install WDS and then do some little bit of configurations on that server, and after that we used to enable the PXE. So there used to be a different server as well, not a PX enabled DP. There used to be a separate server called Pixie Service Point. So we used to install that component. But now in 2012, so you no more need to install WDS as a separate prerequisite. The moment you enable it, it itself will create the WDS server in the background, right? So let me say apply.
Maraha?
Go ahead, Manju.
Yeah, sorry, I got a advanced question. Maybe you can, if we are going to say show, then you can say the PXE related which we enable. This is going to be stored in this machine only, or again we will need to point in some location where, because anyhow we are doing the PXE enable, and that is for OS, so that will be have a so huge space it is going to take. Just to ask like that.
I got it. I got your question. So what we are doing here is, since we have one SCCM server, the site server, what we are doing is on the same server we have built. See, on the same server, we have built all this till date. We have built application catalog, web service, website, site, distribution, management point, reporting service point. So site database server also is on the same server. So we are doing it here like this, but in production, what will happen? You might have a couple of components on one server, or there are chances that most of the times you'll have it on different servers, right? So when you have a different server, so here instead of adding a new site server system role on the same server, what you'll do is you're going to create a new site system server, and you are going to give the remote server name here. When I say create site system server, it's taking some time. Yeah. So this is where you're going to provide a different server's name, right? So on a remote server, sitting from the SCM console, no need to build everything on the same site server. Sitting from the SCM console, you can give a remote server's name and build a distribution point there, and later enable PXE on that server, right? So typically what we do is for OS and all, we'll make sure that at least there is a disk space of minimum 500 GB to at least 500 GB or 1 TB of hard disk space, because on this PXE enabled DP, what and all you are having is boot image is the first thing, which is a very small thing, but after that all these operating system images, right? And then the drivers, so those might take more space. And if you are having multiple images, like you have within Windows 7, you might be having 3 or 4 32-bit, 64-bit, and then every quarter you will be servicing, right? So maybe you will have multiple copies of the same image. Again, you have for Windows 10, and then for the Windows Server, if you are managing even servers operating system deployments. So that way, each image will be like 3 to 4 gigabits, and then gigabits. And if you have multiple images, you're going to occupy more space, right? So keeping in that in mind, whenever we are doing any PX enabled DPs, we say at least minimum of 500 GB is required hard disk space, especially only for deployments. So apart from your C drive, there should be a data disk of 500 GB. Okay. Did I answer your question, Manju?
Yeah, yes, yeah, sir. I got another question. Not now, I'll ask you again later. Just to continue.
Okay, okay, sure. So typically when we are building these roles, what we have done is we used to go to the log files, right? So every time you build something new, we go to C, sorry, this is on the server. So on the server, you don't go to C Windows, you go to the location where it is installed. So in this case, it's C program files, configuration manager, and the logs. So you have the component summarizer, which summarizes if there are any issues. I don't see any errors. Okay, cool. And let me go a little bit above and see what is it talking about the PXE part. Yeah. So configure PXE provider is already installed, right? So PXE is installed. That's what it says. Cool. So now if you see even under services, you should find the Windows deployment services. Let me refresh. Do you see Windows deployment service here running? Earlier it was not there, right? So Windows deployment services server is running. So Pixie is running in the background. So what you can also do is, instead of log files, you can always go to the monitoring node. Let me hide these reports. Yeah. And you can go to the system status. You have component status as well as you have site status, right? So when you look at the site status, it will give you the overall if there are any issues or anything as such. So you right click here on the distribution point, show messages all 1 day ago. So this, it is showing for the entire site. And let me see if I can show you. There you go. So Pixie is enabled on distribution point, right? So there's, I don't see any errors, at least with respect to the Pixie enablement. Let me also show you one more. To go to the component status.
If errors would be there, means what kind of error we will be facing? If you give example, then we will be aware.
Yeah, see, typically what will happen is, as I showed you, for PXE, you require 4 ports I've showed you, right? So those ports like the 68, 69, 4011 and all 67. So these ports, by default, if you are using Windows Firewall, it is going to create the rules. But if you are not using Windows Firewall, it might fail, right? Because it is not creating any rules there for any third-party firewall solution. So that could be one thing. And then network issues. So typically here it is on the same server. So 90% of the times you'll not face any issues. But when you're building on a remote distribution point, you're sitting on one site server, but you're trying to build on a remote distribution point. That's when different things will come into picture, like network connectivity will come into picture, having permissions on that particular server to build, to make some changes on that server, to make it a distribution point, or to make it a PXE enabled distribution point. There should be some required permissions. So most of the times you see either it is failing at the permissions, or it is failing at the network, or it is failing at the disk space. So those are the things, or it is failing at the ports. The ports needs to be opened. The rules need inbound and outbound rules needs to be created on the ports. So those are the things that you typically see errors with. But in this case, since it is on the same server, it has all permissions. There is no network issue, so you're not seeing any issues here. Is that clear, Manju?
Yeah.
So I don't see any issues on this server, and I see the distribution point PXE has been enabled. That's what I see from the log files, from even from the console. You see here it says PXE provider is already installed. This is what log says. And even when you're going to the console and monitoring it, it says PXE is enabled on the distribution point. So considering these things, so let's move ahead. And let me also see in the boot images. Okay, so we need to even distribute these boot images. We'll do it a little later. Okay, so let me first go back to the notepad and go further. So the first thing is you need to enable PXE. That's we are done. So what are the next thing? So we need to, since the DP is ready, you need to distribute the boot images, so that whenever any client machine comes request for the PXE, it will accordingly it will identify is it a 32-bit or 64-bit, and based on your task sequence, right, it will either give a 64-bit boot image to the client machine or a 32-bit boot image. So for that, at least first of all, you need to distribute and make it available on the DP. So let's distribute the boot image. After that, then see, do we have a Windows 7 final image, the captured image? We don't have it, right, to deploy it on the target machine. So what we will do today is we'll take a reference machine. That means we'll take a brand new VM. I'll build a new VM. There's no operating system on that. So on that machine, let's create a build and capture task sequence. And as part of the task sequence, let's have a Windows 7 default Vim file which comes from the ISO, right? So let's have that default Vim. deploy it as part of the task sequence. And if you want, we can also have some one or two applications as part of the image. If you want to put the Google Chrome, since we already have Google Chrome and Adobe Reader, right? So let's put that inside the image. Okay. And once this task sequence is completed, you'll see it building a machine, Windows 10 machine on a brand new VM, installing these applications, and finally it has to capture that Vim file, right? So since this we are doing on a VM, we will not have any driver issues, and also you don't need to join to any domain because it is a build and capture task sequence. I'll explain why you don't need to join to domain at this stage. So let's go step by step.
Okay, okay,
Manju?
Manor. Yeah, the question which I was wanted to ask is about the PA system before you go to the next topic.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't know whether this kind of requirement has come up anytime to you, but like if some users will be required a dual boot OS within one machine. So in that time, how this with the PXE we will be able to do that if there are any possibility.
Dual boot, right? So yes, you can still do it. So you're saying that if the user already have one operating system and you wanted to install one more operating system on the same machine, right? So what you can do is when you have a task sequence, so typically what we are telling is if you have an existing operating system, by default what the task sequence will do, it will identify there's an existing operating system and it will format, right? It will format that machine and install the new operating system. That's one way. The other way is it will upgrade if there is a possibility to upgrade from older to newer, right? It will upgrade that older operating system to newer. But instead of these two default ways, we can have a third way wherein we can tell that even if you find an operating system, do not upgrade, do not format, install one more operating system, right? In that case, what it will do, it will just see, okay, there is an existing operating system so and so, but I'm not going to format it or upgrade it. I'm going to install a new operating system. So in that case, you'll have dual boot. So you can have both operating systems. That will be dealt from the task sequence part.
Okay, so we have such kind of options, right? To get decide by the machine to say like that.
Yes, yes, you have that option, but most of the times what will happen is 90% of the users will not go for a dual boot. But just in case if you have those 10% of users, what you can do is you can create a separate task sequence for them. So that way you don't have any confusion. Or else you can have a condition set up in if you know how to identify those 10% of machines. If you know they belong to a particular domain, child domain, or they belong to a different department, or if you know any criteria, then you can automate it. Or else what I would say, if there is no criteria, it is based on some 10 machines, 20 machines are there who are just randomly asking that they wanted dual boot OS, then it's better to have a separate task sequence for them and run the task sequence to make sure that only they are getting the dual boot and rest others are getting either upgraded to the latest operating system or formatted and getting the latest operating system. So that you can definitely deal within the task sequence.
Okay. Okay. So once if you get a time, just show that once after this.
Sure, sure. In the task sequence, I'll show. Anyways, we'll discuss in detail the task sequence. So not in the build and capture task sequence. Once you have built and you have captured, when you're deploying it, that's when you have all these options, right? In the deployment task sequence, I'll talk about it. Right, Manju?
Yeah. Okay. Can proceed.
So what I'm doing here is I'm distributing the boot image. So it's similar to what we used to do for any package or applications, right? So how we were deploying it. I mean to say how we were distributing it. Let's distribute this as well. Give a distribution point. Similarly distributing on the 32-bit. So it's in progress. As you can see, it is in yellow. It's in progress. Okay. So give it some time to distribute. So meanwhile, so now you have the boot image ready. So what's the other thing that you require? You require the actual OS, the Windows and ISO, right? And you need to upload it to the SCM console. So let's do this. So either I can, as I told you, either I can give an operating system upgrade package or I can give an operating system image. So starting from Windows 7, if you see, you have something called install.vim file. Install.vim is there within the ISO itself. The by default CD DVD that you get, Windows 7, that itself has a install.vim file. So we can make use of it. We can just install the operating system using that install.vim file from the ISO. Let's do that. So how you will do it? You will create a folder here. Create folder. This is just for your making it clear to administer later on. So you'll know where under this folder you have only Windows 7 images like that you can create for Windows 10 and all. That is for your administration. So add operating system image. So where is that I have on this server? The E source Windows 7. So I have ISO. Let me extract the ISO here. Okay.
So the boot images you created or it was defaultly available?
So you remember initially as part of the SCM installation prerequisites, we did ADK. We have installed ADK, right? After that, we have installed SCM. You remember that?
Yeah.
So this comes from that ADK. So when you have installed ADK, that is a prerequisite. And when you install after ADK, when you install SCM, SCM will take boot images from ADK, those default boot images from ADK, and that's how they are shown here. We have not created those boot images. Those are default boot images.
Okay.
Okay. So now, so it's F drive, right? So let me give that here. But I doubt if I can give F as a share here. Let me do one thing. Control A, Control C. Guys, are you following me or what I'm trying to do? Are you all with me or do you have any questions here till now? Or am I going a little speed or slow? Do let me know.
Yeah. So you're copying CD Windows 7 content, right? Complete.
Yeah, I'm copying the Windows 7 ISO, the complete ISO content, whatever is available. I'm just copying it to the source folder. Yeah.
Okay. So inside of ISO content you're copying, right?
Yep, yep, yep.
Okay. Okay. So ISO cannot be mapped directly.
You can, but then what I'm trying to show you is mapping to that exact install.vim file. I want to show you how it happens. So if you see the wizard, it says you need to give the path till the file.vim file, right? So I'm extracting it so that I want to show it till this file.vim file where exactly the install.vim file is. If you don't want to do this way, you will go with operating system upgrade packages and then you give the entire ISO file.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so now we have it here. So since we have already extracted, I don't need this to save some space. I'll delete the actual ISO folder. Right, so I have this entire ISO extracted here. So now what I'll do, I'll give this path double backslash, it's main Sccm, then source, and under source you have Windows 7, right? Under Windows 7, I guess it's sources, and there you have install.vim, right? So now what I've given here, I've given the install.vim file, right? And say next. So it will now read the install.vim file and identify what is this operating system image. So I'm not providing the operating system name, right? I haven't provided the operating system name and other things. So it will read it from the install.vim file. So it says it's Windows 7 Enterprise. So say next, that's it. So all I've done is I've now created an operating system image, the default image. I have not captured, I have not customized, nothing. This is the default image which comes from the ISO, right? So let's do one thing, let's distribute this as well. So this distributing the content is same whatever you do, whichever application package, driver package, boot image, it's the same thing. Just select the DP, so next, that's it. Okay, so meanwhile check if your boot images are distributed. They should be in green. Yep, 64 and 32-bit, both of them are done. And same goes with your Windows 7. This may take a little bit time. Okay, so this is done. So what else? Now you have the Windows 7 image, the default one, and then you have boot image ready. You don't require any drivers for a reference VM, right? This is just a virtual machine. So let's create a task sequence now. Create task sequence. So it's asking install an existing image package. Do you have an existing image? No, we haven't captured an image yet, right? We want to capture one image. So we say build and capture reference operating system image. This is what we wanted to do, right? So what are the other options? It says install an existing image package to a virtual hard disk, right? You can also build virtual hard disks from Sccm, VHD, so that you can directly attach that VHD to any Hyper-V solution and the machine is ready, right? So you can also build virtual hard disk. So it is asking, do you want to build a virtual hard disk out of an existing image package, or do you want to build normal laptops and desktops using existing image package, right? Or you wanted to build and capture a reference image. You say yes, I want to build and capture an image. And what is this? Create a new custom task sequence. This is nothing but you will not have anything in the task sequence. It will be a blank task sequence, so that whatever you want to build, once you say next, a blank task sequence will be created. Then you have to write everything. So it's a custom task sequence. Whatever you want to have as part of the task sequence, you have to build. But when you are selecting any like build and capture or install existing image package, a proper template is created. So you don't need to write everything in the task sequence. Already some of the steps are already built in. So we'll see how it will happen. So the moment I selected build and capture. Okay, let me give the task sequence information. I'll call it as um, build, or maybe I'll say BC Windows 7 Enterprise, right? And browse the boot image. So first of all, what is the version, what is the architecture of this Windows 7? I'm not sure. Let me check on the existing Windows 7 machine. Because even this machine I have built with the same Windows 7 ISO. So let me check here. It's a 64-bit operating system, right? So since this is Windows 7 64-bit, what I'll do is even the boot image, I'll give a 64-bit boot image. So what will happen? So whenever this build and capture task sequence is going, the first time the boot image will go, right? The boot image will also be a 64-bit boot image. Fine. Next, specify the Windows operating system image. What is the image that I wanted to build? So we have just uploaded it. We have uploaded one under this Windows 7 folder. Let's browse that. Browse Windows 7 folder. There is one Windows 7 Enterprise. Say okay. So it says okay. I find one Windows 7 Enterprise there. Right, there's only one. So say sometimes what will happen within in Vim there will be multiple images, multiple editions can be stored within one Vim, like Windows 7 Enterprise, Windows 7 Home, Ultimate kind of thing. If that is the case, you will select the appropriate image from here. So in this case, we don't have any product key. It is a evolution copy, right? And one thing is for sure, you need to give a local administrator password so that once the machine is built for you to log into it. So let me give the default password. Okay, join a work group. So guys, do you think we need to give domain or work group here?
Since you said the domain is not required, so Workgroup only.
Yeah, but why? Why is domain not required at this stage?
You only told that you will explain.
Yeah, I told I'll explain. I'm just trying to see if you guys can think something else. Amar, I see you're unmuted.
No, basically it's only for work group. Later on we'll have to join it to domain. I'm not sure if the uh, AD has been configured, so wherein we can join it back to domain or not.
No, AD is already there, right? We have a domain controller, we have AD and everything is already there. Rohit, I see you want to say something? Sai?
Yeah, in case say any conflicts, something like same user, sorry, same computer name would be in the work group and the domain.
You mean to say SID, right?
Yeah,
The
SID.
security identifier.
Some conflict sort of thing. To avoid that, first we can go to the work group and then we can join. When the image got deployed, then we can join to the domain, I guess.
Yes, yes, you are right. You are right. So what we are trying to do here is we are just building and capturing one image. We want to make that image as much generic as possible. That means within that image, you don't want to have any drivers because later on you're going to deploy this image to hundreds of machines. You never know which machine will be which model, right? So that's the reason you're not putting any drivers here. You're making it generic. Similarly, if you're adding it to the domain, you never know afterwards which machine is going to join to which particular OU, which domain and all. If you already add this machine to domain, an SID will get created. And if you're capturing that image, now all the 100 machines are getting a machine wherein there is an SID is already associated with it. You don't want to do that, right? You want to make the image as much generic as possible. You do not want to add it to domain, have an SID created, and then deploy all 100 machines with the same SID, right guys? So make it a generic machine, generic image, and tomorrow once you deploy this image, after that in the deployment task sequence have a step to, okay, first install the generic image and then now add this machine to domain because now you have already renamed it. You have a new host name. After you deploy this image, you'll get a new host name there. So I have renamed the computer and then with that computer name, I'm going to join it to the domain. Next time the same deployment task sequence will run on another machine. There also first it will apply the image, it will rename it, it will get a new name. Then with that new name, it is adding it to the domain, maybe into a different OU or maybe into a different areas, right? So that's how the initial image what you're capturing should be as much generic as possible and it should not be part of domain. There's no point for to make this machine as part of domain because you're just using it to capture the image. Is it clear? Any questions, guys? Okay, I consider that as no questions. So join a work group. At this stage, you're not adding it to domain. You'll add it in the deployment task sequence. Say next. So it is asking for the configuration manager client package, right? So by default, you have that in your configuration manager client already in your Sccm environment. Just like you have this boot images, even the client image client is also there. Because of the client, we have already pushed to one of the Windows 7 machines, right? We have already deployed, pushed it to one of the Windows 7 machines with some properties. So if you have any installation properties, you can provide them here, just like your SMS site code is equal to auto or a particular site code or SMS cache size, right? So all those installation properties, whatever you have, if you want to give any specific installation properties, you can mention it here. Otherwise, say next.
But if in a real environment we want to join a domain, we know the domain details, then we can join it, right?
No, no, that's what I'm saying. What you're doing here is you're just capturing an image. You're creating one Vim file.
No, I'm
And
not here. I'm just taking an example.
nobody, even in the real time, even in the production, first of all, you should create one image. Then only you can deploy it to the your production environments. So there are two parts to it. The first part is capturing an image. Second part is deploying to your production machines. Even in your real-time scenario, I'm talking about even in the real-time scenario, the first part is capturing an image. Second part is deploying to hundreds of machines. So in the first part, you'll always give a group because that is only capturing an image. In the second part, when you're deploying to hundreds of machines, that's when you'll say, okay, join to the domain, and this is my computer name, and this is the domain, and this is the OU you need to join. So those details you'll give in the second task sequence. First task sequence, wherever it is, even in your production environment, build and capture task sequence will never give the domain. You'll always give work group.
Okay. So once we complete with the workgroup session, once wizard finishes, then again, if we want to join a domain, then again we need to come up with the same wizard, is it?
Yeah, but that you'll do it in a different task sequence. That is called, you'll create one more task sequence. In this task sequence, it will be always work group. You'll create one more task sequence called deployment task sequence, which you will be using to deploy to 100 machines. That's where you're giving domain.
Okay. I was just confused then if we are not using, then why it was available then. Okay. Now I got it.
Okay, cool. So this is for the patches. You remember yesterday I was telling you thin image. So in the thin image, what you'll have OS and patches, right? By default, you'll have OS and patches. So you just have OS, you have the SCM client. Now it is asking, do you want to give the patches? But we haven't gone till the patch management session. So we don't have any patches in the SCM console. We haven't created WSOS patches and all. If you have done that, what you will do here is you'll select, okay, install mandatory software updates or all software updates. So accordingly, those software updates will get installed. So in this case, since we don't have any patches as of now, you can say do not install any software updates. Install applications. If you want, if there are any core applications that you wanted to, to be part of the image, like yesterday we discussed core application like .NET, Silverlight, VC++, or Adobe Reader, or the Google Chrome or Office 2016. Some of these applications which you think that they should be available on all of the machines, and you don't want to waste time again installing them as a separate process, right? Let's bake them inside the image itself. Okay, if you have any such application, you can do it. So just to show, we have. I think under miscellaneous apps, you have Adobe Reader and Google Chrome. I can give Adobe Reader or Google Chrome, but I don't know what is the detection method I've given. Maybe for explanation, I think I've given some detection method. So let me do one thing. Let me select Google Chrome. Okay, and I will also later I'll again go back to Google Chrome and see if it was properly set or not. Otherwise, what will happen? The task sequence will fail at Google Chrome if the Google Chrome is not given the detection method and other things were not given properly. Okay. So that's what it says. If an application installation fails, continue installing other applications in the list. So what this will do is, say suppose if I have 10 applications, even if one application fails, the task sequence will not fail. It will go to the second application, right? But if all these applications will fail, then it will halt at that stage, right? So say next. I can always have that option, continue an error, even in the task sequence. I'll show it to you. So say next. So install application is done. If you have any sysprep, so typically you will have this sysprep for Windows XP, but this being a Windows 7, you don't need this anymore. Image properties, if just for your your visibility, you can put a version to that and give some description of okay, this image contains OS, no patches, kind of, you can give any description here. So finally you want to capture the image. So next, so where do you want to capture? Give a location to it. So I'll say under may SCCM sources, I want to have a folder called capture. Under that, I want to call this as capture win7.vim. Okay, and let's have any account permissions. I just wanted to check if an account has permission on that particular folder. So in this case, we are always using the mail app administrator. Let's continue using it. but I think we haven't created a folder, so it might fail. Test connection. Yeah, it fails because there's no folder, right? So let me create that folder under source, new folder, capture. Did I give capture or captures? Capture. Okay, capture. So test connection. Okay, successfully verified. Fine. So now what is going to happen? The moment you run this task sequence, it is going to do build the Windows 7 and all the other stuff, and finally it is going to capture Vim file. It is going to store here, right? So next. So with this, we have created a task sequence now, right? So now let's go into the task sequence, see what exactly how does it look like. Go to edit. So this is how a task sequence looks like. On the left side, you will have all the different tasks that it is performing. On the right side, you will have options to, you can see what exactly it is doing, and you can give some conditions. I was talking about giving some conditions and all that, right? So all that can be given on the right side. And on the left side pane, if you want to add more tasks here, or if you want to remove some tasks, right? So all that can be done here. Right? But this is a by default, the moment you selected build and capture task sequence, so already it has created some tasks based on your selection. So let's go through it them. So first it says building the machine is one group, capturing the machine is the second group. So it is performing, it is performing two different major steps, high level view. One is building the machine, second it is capturing the image. So in the building machine, what it is doing, first of all, whichever state the machine is, maybe it is the machine is already, the operating system is running on that machine, or maybe it is in the reboot environment. It will just restart the machine into Windows PE, right? So when it restarts the machine, it is going to build the partition the disk. So how it is doing the partition disk? So by default, it is giving 99% of the remaining space to the C drive, and just 1% for the recovery. But if you don't want this way, you want a separate C drive, you want a separate D drive, C drive for 50%, D drive for 50%, something like that. You always have the option. You can select it, you can delete, right? And you can give your own options here, how you want the operating system to be, right? But typically we don't mess anything here in the build and capture because this is just an image. What you can do is always you can make changes to the deployment task sequence, the second part of it. But the first part, most of the times build and capture, you don't mess with it. There's nothing much to change here. There's no great automation that you can do. It's just building a machine and capturing it, right? But I'm just telling you what are the things you can do. If you want to make bigger partition, smaller partition, all those changes you can do here. So if you have UEFI, so these are two things. It will check whether you are running on BIOS or the latest one, which is UEFI. So which is that you are running? So there is a condition. So I was telling you every time there will be a condition. So where is the condition? You don't see any condition here. The condition will be always in the options. See, there are already some conditions, built-in conditions were written. So based on these conditions, it is identifying whether this machine is BIOS or UEFI. So accordingly, if it is BIOS, these are the steps it is doing. If it is UEFI, these are the steps it is doing, right? It is creating MSR, EFI and all this. So that depends on these conditions. It is reading those conditions. We haven't created these conditions, right? So similarly, in the actual task sequence, we can create our own conditions. Like I was telling you about check the default gateway if the machine belongs to France, or if the model is Dell latitude. So all these are the different conditions. This is where we write those conditions. So based on the conditions, a particular task will decide whether it has to run or it should not. So it will check all these conditions whatever you put here, right? So in the deployment task sequence, I will create our own condition. I'll show it to you how it will work. So this is all default what we are doing right now. So okay, so first it restarted the machine in Windows PE, then it has did the partitioning of the disk, that is it formatted, and then applying operating system. So what is the operating system it is applying? The ISO image, the one that we have uploaded, right? So the ISO image, it is installing the operating system, and then Windows settings. So it is creating a local administrator password. Time zone is our IST time zone, right? Network settings. So this is where it adds the machine to either workgroup or domain. So in our case, it is adding the machine to workgroup. If there are any drivers, it will install the drivers, but we haven't created any drivers or driver package, right? Because this is a VM and it doesn't require any specific drivers, and also we are capturing it. We don't want to have any specific drivers included in the image. Then the SCCM client. So this is the package. It is saying I'm going to install this configuration manager client package. As I told you, this is the default client package which we have even used to in the initial session to push client agent, the ccm setup.exe, the client.msh. So that's what it is talking about. So it is going to even install the client agent on that machine before capturing it. Then install application. So we have selected Google Chrome. So like that you can give multiple applications as part of core image. So all these applications will be inside the image now, whatever you give here. So with this, building a machine is completed. Then the second group, capturing it. So first prepare the configuration manager client. What does it mean by preparing a client agent? So what it means is, see, whenever a client agent is installed, it will have one specific ID, right? GUID will be there. So you don't want to have that GUID when you're deploying the same image to 100 machines. You don't want all 100 machines to have the same configuration manager client agent ID, right? So what it does is it will clear all those IDs from the registries and it will clear everything. Only the client agent is installed, but anything specific to a machine, whatever is the specific data is there, that it will clear off. So that when the same image is used to build some hundreds of machines, once the image is deployed, then the client agent will see that, okay, I don't have any ID, I'm just blank, I just have a client agent installed, but there is no ID. So let me talk to my management point, and it will talk to management point, and accordingly then it will get its client agent ID, and it's like a fresh installation for it. So freshly it will get configured. Only the agent installation is already done, so that it will speed up the process. But then the configuration of the client agent part will happen only after it goes to the end user machine, once you are deploying the image, right? So at this point, what we are doing, we are just clearing of all these IDs which are inside the client agent. Then you're preparing the OS. What does preparing OS means? Client agent preparing is clearing the IDs which are there in the client agent. Preparing OS is OS related, if there are any information, right, on the hardware related information is there in the OS, or the event viewer, right? So event viewer might be having so much of events in that. So all that you don't want to capture as part of image and then deploy it onto all the machines, right? So anything which is specific to this machine, the machine that we are building, any information is there, just clear off everything, make it a generic image, so that this prepare OS will take care of. And finally, capture the reference image. So finally it is going to capture and put it under Windows and .wim file. So guys, do you have any questions in this task sequence? Okay, I consider it as no. So what do we have now? We have a task sequence, right? And we have a operating system, image. So all these are ready. So what is that we need? We need a target machine, right? We need a VM to deploy. So let's create one VM here. New virtual machine. I'll call it as reference 17.
One or just a generic question.
Sure. Go ahead.
What's the size, the RAM you have on your computer?
32.
32 GB RAM.
Yeah, 32 GB RAM.
Oh, okay.
Why is it, Amar?
You are creating multiple VMs, no, and it's always running. So I just wanted to understand how is it working.
It is working because it has enough RAM.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
yep.
No, you can even run both at a time also, but one by one. At a time you cannot run. Once started, it will run both.
Okay, so this is the May reference machine. I'm building it. Choose the generation of this virtual machine. Say next. Let me give it, I think 1 GB is enough. So here I need to give it a network, right? So I want this machine to be able to communicate with my SCCM server. So this is internal underscore May. This is the switch I've created to contact with the May domain. So internal underscore May. Okay, that's fine. Next. So install an operating system later. Right now I don't want to give, I want Sccm to build that operating system. So say no operating system now. Next, finish. Okay, so I have my machine ready. So what I need to do is, before I run this, let me go to the settings and let me remove this, because typically in Hyper-V what will happen, the standard network adapter will, there are some known issues with PXE booting. So you remove this network adapter and from the hardware add legacy network adapter. This is just because I know there are some known issues with the network adapter, and you need to give legacy network adapter for PXE boot. Internal may apply. So that is one change I want to do. And the second thing, I want to give a static MAC address, because how will I know, how will SCM know that it has to push build and capture task sequence only to this machine, right? So I want to give a static MAC address here, or else what I can do is, if you remember in the initial session, what I've explained, you can go ahead and give unknown computer support. So when you give unknown computer support for now to SCCM, this machine is unknown, right? So if you give unknown computer support, the machine, this is the moment this is on the corporate network and it is trying to connect to the the network boot server and trying to ask for a boot image, even then your PXE server will respond back saying that okay, this is unknown computer and I am supposed to support it and I am supposed to give the boot image, so it will do it. But instead of that, what I'm doing is I am taking a static, I'm giving a static MAC address to this machine and then importing this computer to SCM console, so that SCM will know that okay, this is a known computer, it's no more unknown. So let's do that. So what I'll do in the advanced features, I'll give a static MAC address. Guys, can you give me any MAC address? Let me give something on my own. Yeah, Manju.
Yeah, you can give 3C 5 to 1B
Mm-hmm.
H1.
Sorry,
H1.
I don't think I can give H. Can I?
I, okay, you can try that because it will
No,
be
no,
different
no,
all the
no, no.
time.
It will take only from A to F, I guess. It will take only F, so it will not take H. Okay, so 00 and 01. I guess it takes from 1 to 9 and then A to F. That's how the MAC address is, right? So let's remember this, or let me write it out somewhere before I, because I need to again import this computer there, right? So it's 3C 53 3C53 1B FF 0001. So this is my MAC address. Fine. Say apply. Okay. So let's import this computer there now. So go back to your SCM console. So how do you import? So this machine will never get discovered because it's not part of domain, right? So even if your discovery methods are running, this machine is never going to be discovered. So what you are going to do here is go to devices, you say import computer information, import using a file. No, there is no file. This is just a single computer. Single computer, say next. Computer name is ref underscore win7. This is the computer name and the MAC address is, come on. I don't have the Hyper-V settings here installed. Okay, fine. I need to type in 3C531B FF00. What's the last one? 01. Fine. Next. So I just imported this computer and I'll make it as part of all systems collection by default. Close. Okay, now I have this ref underscore win7, right? So let me create a device collection. Create a device collection, called it as build or build and capture collection. sorry, right, this collection will have reference machine for Windows 7 image. Limiting collection is all systems. I'm not going through and explaining all this stuff because you guys by now you know how to create a collection and all that stuff. So add rule. So directly I know the computer name, right? So directly I can add that computer. So it is something with ref percentage. Okay, wait a minute. Looks like it has not get populated to all systems yet. Let me just create this collection, later we will add it. Looks like it is not no, it is not at part of the all systems collection. So if I go to the all systems collection, see you don't have ref. So let me update membership for all systems so that first it will come here, because this is the parent collection. I have given the what is this all system as a parent collection to that one, right? Limiting collection or parent collection. So it has to be first here. Only then it will it can be seen under your build and capture collection. So let me refresh. Did I do update membership? Yes. Okay, now I have it here. So now I can go to device, add resources. There are multiple ways to add a computer to a collection, right? So I'm doing like add resource to a collection, and I'll do update membership. You guys are following me. You know why I'm doing this, right? I've created a collection now. I have a reference machine VM, new VM there. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to deploy the task sequence onto this collection, right? That's how we do, right? If you want to distribute any package, application, always we create a collection and we deploy it onto a collection. So going back to the software library, task sequence, I'm going to deploy this task sequence. So this is just a warning. So earlier in 2007, you used to never get this warning. So 2012 latest version, they have kept this. So because this is related to OSD, right? So this is kind of one more checkpoint from the Sccm itself. So it says has a potential to be a high risk deployment. Therefore, the select collection window display only the custom collection that that meet the site configuration. So by default, it is not going to give you all systems collection here. It is only going to give you the custom collections, because this is a high risk. If something happens, OS deployment, so your servers or your systems are being built into Windows 7, that's the last thing you want, right? Before resigning from the company. Anyways, not resigning, they're going to fire you anyways. So Win7 collection. So is it available? No. By default, I want it to push required. All this is default here, so I'm not explaining. Deployment, you have multiple times we have seen how to deploy a application or package. It's the same thing. Deploying a task sequence is similar to it. The same schedule. Next, next, next. Close. So now the task sequence is deployed. So what is left over? Before I trigger this, let me, yeah, there are two things I need to do. One is the application. I want to check the Google Chrome if it is, I don't want the task sequence to fail at Google Chrome. Let me check that first. If it is configured properly or not. See, whenever you want to deploy an application as part of task sequence, right? See, there are two ways of deploying an application. One is directly you're deploying to a collection. Right click and deploy to collection. The other way is you're calling this application as part of your task sequence, right? Like what we did now in a build and capture task sequence, we are calling this application there. In such cases, you have to check this box, right? Allow these application to be installed from the install application task sequence action without being deployed. So we are not deploying this to a collection. Here what we are doing is we are deploying it as part of task sequence. If you don't do this, the application will fail. Okay, during the task sequence the application will fail. So this is one checkpoint. Rest everything I don't think we need to check except for the if there is any supersedence, any such thing we have cleared. Okay, we have not done anything like that. And in the detection method, did we give the right detection method? Content program detection method, yes. So this is the default which came with the Google Chrome MSI. So we are good here. And then user experience. Even in user experience, if you give here like run with user credentials or only when a user is logged on, that application is going to fail as part of task sequence, because in task sequence there will be no user logged in at that point. When you're trying to install an operating system, there is no user logged in as part of task sequence, right? And you cannot run with the user credentials. So if any application it has run with user rights or only when a user is logged on, those applications will fail in task sequence. Guys, what I'm telling you right now are the real-time scenarios. Like during task sequence, some applications will fail. Okay, so you'll never know. Instead of going to 10 different places to troubleshoot, first these are the basic steps you have to come back. See if the particular first checkbox is enabled or not on the application, what I've just shown you. The second thing is, by any chance did I give user interaction is required, or only when a user is logged in, or run with user rights. If anything such anything like that is selected, then the application is going to fail. So these are the basic things you have to come back and check in these applications, right? So this, and again the requirements is also one more thing. Say suppose in requirements, if you're given that this has to run only on a Windows 10 and now you're building a Windows 7 machine, so it will definitely fail there as part of task sequence, right? So make sure that your application is configured properly to be to run as part of task sequence, right? Clear. So we are clear as part of Google Chrome. Apply. So okay, let's take the adjustment. So meanwhile, what's the other thing I wanted to tell you? uh, okay, cool. So Pixie enable DP is done, boot images are done, your image is there, task sequence is ready, reference machine is ready. So what's the next thing is, there is something called network access account. This is important, network access account. This is important and you need to configure it. So tell me one thing, see this is a bare metal machine, right? Bare metal means there is no operating system on this, okay? And it is contacting the, we are telling that it will contact the DP and it will download the boot image, and later on it is going to download the operating system image, right? So how is it going to download the operating system image, Google Chrome and all that? So in order to connect to DP, it requires a account, but this machine, since there is no operating system and it is not joined to domain, so what is the account it will use to connect during the pre-boot environment? If once the operating system is there, that is fine. But during the pre-boot environment or when there is no operating system installed, how is it going to download the operating? There should be an account, right? So that account is called network access account. So during when it is still in the network stage, the network access account needs to be created. Otherwise, it will fail, right, guys? So that network access account is what you give here into under administration. If you remember, when we went to this distribution point, I have purposefully not gone to the last thing. I've only talked about general and full distribution point. I've never gone to the network access account. So this is what is network access account. So the network access account is used by configuration manager client to access network locations during content deployment or during operating system deployment, right? So we are in the operating system deployment phase. This is when there is no operating system on that machine. How is it going to contact the server to download? So it is going to contact using this account. Guys, are you able to follow me? Do you have any questions till now? Okay, so let me initiate the task sequence deployment, and if you have any questions, we'll have ample time to discuss there. Looks like you guys either don't have any doubts or maybe it's not that easy to understand. Fine. If you want, what I can do is I will not configure this network access account. I want to show you what error it comes, how it throws, and then you can come back and give this network access account. Because right now what I'm doing is I'm trying to make sure everything is set up properly. That's the reason most of the times, 90% of the times, you're not seeing any errors in the lab. But in production, if you're missing any one of these, like what happened with Sai's lab, right? So he had missed creating the boundaries initially, or later he missed creating the distribution point. So he's facing multiple issues. Whereas when I've done all of them, when I've taken all of them, taken care of them, so I was not getting any issue in my lab, right? So I want you to see an error as well. Let's do that. So go ahead and start this machine. So first thing what will happen, it has to get an IP address from the DHCP, right? And then it will connect to the boot server to download the boot image. Let's see what will happen. Let me pause it. Wait a minute. So as you can guys, as you can see, it says client MAC address is so and so, and it is contacting the DHCP server. Something is rotating here, right? So it is trying to contact the DHCP. Let's see what will happen. I'm pausing it again. So now it says I've contacted the DHCP, right? Client has got an IP address now, 2.6, 12.6, and it says gateway IP is so and so. Downloaded the WEDS NBP from the 12.2. What is 12.2 server, guys? 12.2 server is our SCM server. So it went to our Sccm PXC server, PXC distribution point. It went there and it downloaded something called WDS NBP, network boot program. So what this network boot thing will do, it will identify what is the architecture of this machine. Okay, so it identified that the architecture is x64 of this machine. So then it says, now I'm going to see if there are any configuration manager policy, right? So what is configuration manager policy? In this case, it's a deployment, build and capture task sequence is targeted. So it says contacting the server 12.2 to see if there is any policy targeted to it. It says about Pixie. So that means it couldn't find any policy targeted to it and it is failing. So let's see. So now it has failed actually. In this case, about pixie.com, it failed. So let us go back and let me rerun it once again. See why let me rerun it once again to see where it failed. 3C531BFF0001 12.2 and it failed. Okay, let's go step by step and try to troubleshoot it. So ideally I've created a task sequence. Where's my task sequence? Software library. I have a task sequence and did I target it deployment? I've targeted to this collection, and under that collection do we have that machine? Yes, I have the machine. So if I right click and see the properties, do I see the deployment there? Deployments. Yes, I see the deployment there. That means it should have got the policy. So it is saying it did not get. So let me check here and clear flag. There is no flag. So what is it blocking? Let me go back to the task sequence once. Software library, task sequence, and see the properties of task sequence. Boot image is x64. Run on any platform. Okay, the only thing is, did we give any wrong MAC address? Is there any typo in the MAC address? Let me check that. So what is the MAC address here? 3C531BFF0001. And what is it on the 3C531BFF0001? To me it looks same. Okay, since this is also okay, let me go back here and see if it is just a momentary issue. Let me turn it off and go back to mhm. Anyways, it was going to legacy network adapter only. I'm just changing the boot order, but that's not the issue. Guys, are you able to hear me? Guys, are you able to hear me now? Hello.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. At what point? I don't know at what point the connection was lost. You guys have seen the error, right? Were you there when there was an error?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Fine. I'm just checking on the distribution point. So actually, from the Pixie point, I don't see any issues. So let me. Network wise, I don't see issues. Pixie wise, we have configured everything. Network access account that we have not done purposefully, that's still fine. Mhm. Am I missing something here? Okay, wait a minute. Okay, this is clear. Guys, just give me a minute. I want to check if there's something else is missing. I'm just checking if all these images are distributed or not. All of them are distributed, the boot images as well as the voice image. So this is the log file which is responsible. So it will tell you when a client machine is asking for a request. So here it says the 3C531BFF0001 machine, it asked me for a pixie, but I don't see any advertisements. But ideally we have pushed an advertisement, right? That is the deployment. We have already deployed it to the collection. Ideally it should not say that, because that's the reason it says I don't find any advertisement. Hence I'm, I'm not giving any boot image to it, and I've kicked the machine off. So what we can do is, if you do it now in the real time, we can see that again. So the moment I say Control Alt, so it is contacting. Yeah, it says no advertisement found. So that's the reason it has come out. Let me do one thing. I don't know why it is saying there's no advertisement found, but to be on safer side, let me delete this deployment and just recreate it. If it says it is not able to find it, I guess there's some issue with this deployment. Let me just delete this deployment and create it fresh as a deploy to this collection, to this collection. Say next. Okay, got it. Okay, so this was the issue. Okay, so when I created this, you see here there's something called make available to the following. You have only configuration manager clients. So it says that only when there's a configuration manager client on that machine, right? From the client agent, the deploy you should get the advertisement. Ideally, we are doing it from the PXE, right? So we want this deployment to be available even at the PXE stage. So at this drop-down box, you have configuration manager clients, media, and PXE. Even if I'm doing from USB or I'm doing from PXE or the client agent, wherever I'm doing, I need to get it. That was missing earlier, right, guys? So next, schedule it at whatever the time, 7:44. What is the time now? Yeah, 7:45. So we are good. 7:44 as soon as possible. So that was the issue. Guys, you got it? What I was trying to tell you? You got the issue?
Yes, Manu.
Yep. Say next, next, next. That's it. So now I have created the advertisement. So basically in the log file, it is clearly saying that the problem is with the deployment. That's when we went and looked into the deployment, right? So it says no advertisement found. So now this time when you rerun it, it might take a minute to understand a policy is targeted to it. That's fine. Even if it fails for the first time, next time it will run successfully. So let's Control Alt Delete. See, it says using advertisement so and so. Now it found the advertisement, right? So it says looking for policy. It has got the policy now. But as I told you, we are expecting it to fail again because I have not given the network access account. But that's late at a little later stage. Now it will download the boot image, and later stage it will fail. So you can see now it downloading the boot image. Wait a minute, it will show it here. Okay, as you can see, it is downloading boot.may0005.vim file. What is this may0005.vim? If you go back to your console, see here also you are able to see that it is downloading the boot image, right? So if you go back to your console, boot image, 64 boot image is nothing but May0005, right? So May 5 is nothing but your 64 boot image. That's what is getting downloaded here. Right guys, so earlier what was the mistake, what was the error? So we haven't set the deployment to run from PXE. We have set the deployment to run only from the configuration manager client. That means when operating system is running, this particular advertisement what we created earlier will only be visible in the software center, right? So but in this case it's a bare metal machine, there is no OS, there is no software center. So we want this to happen even from the PXE. Then you are supposed to select in the deployment to select to run even from configuration manager client or PXE or media, wherever it is. That was missing earlier. So let it download this boot image. So after it downloads boot image, the first thing it will do is it will ask you for the PXE password. Remember we have set a password, right? So downloading boot image is not going to format the machine or install any operating system. It is just a boot image, right? It is kind of a mini operating system. Boot image is nothing but a mini operating system wherein the machine can operate and start downloading the actual OS and start formatting the machine, right? It has to run from some other operating system. So this kind of a mini operating system from where the machine will run and take appropriate action. And guys, if you remember my demo class, initial class, where will be this boot image be? Where will this boot image sit? You remember? This boot image will be there on your RAM, because if you have this boot image on your hard disk, how can you format your hard disk and install operating system there, right? So what you're doing now is you're downloading a mini operating system, which is a boot image, putting it on your RAM, so loading from your RAM, right? And then you're going to format your actual hard disk and install operating system, main operating system, and later on next time when the machine reboots, it will reboot into the actual operating system. So boot image is only a kickstarter, just for your ignition, initial ignition. It has to start and it has to format the hard disk. So from it has to sit somewhere, the machine has to sit somewhere to format the hard disk and install operating system there. That's where you require boot image, and boot image will be loaded onto your RAM. Make sense? So now the boot image is loading. So initializing Windows PE. So it is asking for the PXE password. We are given a password, small password 123. So only after you hit this password, it is going with the actual deploy. If you don't hit the password, it comes out. This is one way of the checkpoint I was talking about. So I have given the password, say next. Now it is checking for the policy. It says I found the policy. The policy name is build and capture Windows on Enterprise. This is the deployment that you have targeted. It says I found the policy. It will also do the resolving dependencies. It will check if this is the stage where it is checking if this task sequence, what are the components required for task sequence, like okay, this stage, wait a minute. So during that stage, like resolving dependencies, what it will check is, okay, what are the components required for task sequence? It requires an OS, it requires Google Chrome, right? So all of them are copied or not. If they're not copied, it would have failed in the earlier window itself. Now what it is doing, it says, okay, I found my operating system image, I found the Google Chrome, everything has been distributed. Let me let me format it. So it had formatted, but after formatting, what it has to do, it has to contact the server to download the OS image. At that particular point, it failed because there is no network access account. Guys, you are following me? If you go back to the task sequence here, guys, if you have any questions, please ask. This is very important session. See, in this task sequence, edit. See, it did the restart in Windows PE. That's happened. It partitioned the disk. After partitioning disk, what is the next step? Since there is no UEFI, this part will get skipped. It is not a UEFI, it is BIOS. It will skip. It will go to apply operating system. In order to apply operating system, it has to download this Windows 7 Enterprise. In order to download, it needs a network access account, right? And I have not configured it purposefully. So that's the reason it failed here. So in production environment, you might see this. If anytime it fails, that means the network access account is missing. So you'll get to know at what stage it failed. Based on that, you will be able to tell what is the error. If it is failing, it has formatted, but it is failing to download something right at the downloading operating system. That's where it failed. Network access account is the issue. If it fails even before that, like even before formatting, retrieving the policy itself, it failed. That means the problem is with the certificate. So there are various stages. So based on that, you can tell where exactly the issue is. Okay. So now let me, before I restart this, let me configure the network access account. So go back to administration. Where do you do it? On your sites, configure site components, software distribution, network access account. Specifies the account that access network locations. So traditionally we have one account, right? Mailab SCM administrator. So Mailab administrator. So select that. Now it will access the OS image with this account. Apply. Okay. Restart now. So I want to show you one more thing now. So this time it is again restarting, and let it contact the DHCP. I want to pause here. So ideally you might have expected at this stage to, since network access account is given, what it has to do, it has to again go back to DHCP, get the IP address, and then proceed further. And this time it will go to the partition disk, and after that it will not fail. It will directly download the OS image, right guys? But as you can see, it failed here itself, saying about pxe.com. Why did it fail here? Can any one of you tell me? Any guesses? Manju?
Maybe the network link it didn't found.
No, no. So you have given a network access account, right? So the before time it had installed everything, and just before installing the operating system, downloading the operating system, it failed because it was not able to contact. So even now, if after giving the network access account, either because you gave the network access account, it should proceed further from the downloading operating system, or else if there is some problem with network access account, it should fail there. But why is it failing at the initial stage? It had passed this stage, right, earlier. Why is it facing here? I'll tell you. The reason is, once a deployment, once the PXE server gives downloads the boot image, once the client machine downloads the boot image from the PXE server, it will create a flag saying that I have already given a boot image to this machine and it has already downloaded. So to PXE server, it means that the machine is already deployed. So to avoid redeployment, sometimes there are chances that the machine gets the end user, he might click F12, or there are chances that the machine gets rebuilding. So to avoid that, I'm telling you, right, there will be multiple checkpoints. There are multiple ways to putting checkpoints. One is the password. So this is also one of the checkpoints. That is, once it understands that a PXE flag is given, okay, the machine has got a boot image, a CCM server will understand, okay, this machine is built already. I don't want to rebuild this machine, right? So how to identify, how to make sure that the deployment proceeds further now? At this case, what you have to do is go back to your SCM server, go to your client machine. Where is your client machine? So this machine, this time when you right click it and say clear required PXE deployments. So you are saying, is there any required PXE deployment flag is there? If there is something like that, show me. So and clear it. So when you click it, it will tell you, okay, this is the last time SCM server has given a boot image. That is the reason I'm not giving another boot image. If you want to give another boot image, clear the flag now. Okay, only then I'm going to give you one more boot image. So SCCM administrator will only have access to clear this. You'll come here, it will tell you, right? Already BC Windows Enterprise task sequence has deployed on so and so date, right? The last runtime is so and so time. So I've already run it so and so. That's the reason I'm not giving a deployment image. Once again, you say, okay, never mind. This is just, I'm still testing it. Go ahead and clear this flag. Now you go back to the machine, you rerun it, you rerun it. So since there is no PXE flag, it will not stop it here, right? It did not stop. So it is pixeboot.n12. Only when you get abort pixie.com, that means it is going to abort it. That is the only error, right? Here when it says pixeboot.n12 or anything else, that means it is going to proceed further. So it is downloading the boot image. And this time it will not even fail to download the operating system image because network access account is given, right? It will proceed further. Guys, do you have any questions? So purposefully I'm trying to make some errors and I'm explaining it to you. Do you see any issues here in understanding the process?
So, Manohar, could there be multiple flags also, or there could be only one single flag in a real time? I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, there will be, see, once if you have a flag, then next time it will not allow it, right?
Yeah.
So
So
that answers your
will
question.
they multiple flags, or so I understand that if there is a flag, next time when we are trying to run, it might stop at that stage. So we certain times have to clear it. So currently, what we saw is one single flag. Will there be multiple flag again to see, or is it?
No, Omar, try to understand the logic here. So, if there is a flag, it is not allowing you to deploy. So, when it is not applying, allowing you to deploy, then there is no question of one more flag there,
Okay,
right? The
all
logic
right.
itself says that the moment I saw a flag, that's the reason I'm not allowing you to. So, if it is never allowing you, then there is no chance of creating one more flag.
Okay. No, any other scenario wherein mm,
Mm,
I'm just trying, it's vague, but it shouldn't be happening. But somewhere, okay, this flag can be skipped and it can go to a next option, something like that.
I,
Has it been seen?
no, nothing comes to my mind.
Okay.
Have I seen any time like multiple flags in any
No,
scenario?
I'm just,
No, no, no. I'm
just
thinking. I'm just thinking loud. I'm thinking loud. So, have I ever seen maybe when there are more than one deployments? Have I ever seen? Nope, nope. I don't think I've ever seen that. If I'm just thinking loud, maybe if there are multiple deployments, like you have one built-in capture task sequence, you have one more deployment task sequence, one more deployment task sequence. So will it create multiple flags in that case? But I don't think so. So once the machine has already addressed, you'll have only one flag. That's what I think. Yeah.
okay. Sure.
But at any given point of time, you can come back here and clear that. So only SCM administrator will have that control, not the end user, right? So end user by mistake, see what happens typically, we'll put network boot as the first priority device, right? And we'll forget to change it. So what will happen? The end user, today you have built his machine keeping network boot as the first priority. You have built the machine and you are giving the end user the laptop. The moment he starts, it will not go to his operating system because the first boot device is network boot. It will go to the network boot, and again it will, if it is start downloading and the boot image, then his machine is going to rebuild again, right? To avoid that, what you are doing, even if by mistake even if you have left it with network boot, it will go to the network boot. It will see that there is a flag. It will abort PXE. Then what is the next booting device? The next booting device is your hard disk. So it will boot from your hard disk. It will start your operating system. So even if you leave network boot as a first priority, it is not going to harm him. You're getting the whole
Okay.
point, whole reason
Yeah.
behind this.
Yeah, I got it.
So let me give 123 here, the password, retrieving the policy, and now it has to resolve the dependencies. In our case, we have only two dependencies, three dependencies: boot image, OS image, and Google Chrome. So all the three are already distributed, so it will not fail. Okay, partitioning.
This partition, how it will get decided, because we have not allocated any size for the hard disk.
Yeah, so I've shown you, right?
That
And in the task sequence, I've shown you that there is a default setting, like 99% will be given to the C drive, and 1% will be given to the recovery partition, right? So that's the default thing. So if you want to make any changes, you can make changes, but that's how by default SCM is configuring. Okay. So as you can see now, this time it did not fail at downloading the Vim. It is downloading the Vim file, and then it will apply, and after that, Google Chrome will get installed and capture Vim file. So guys, any questions? So this is going to take some time. So if you want, you can stay, or else you can leave. I will just keep the recording on. So meanwhile, if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask. In the entire process, do you all understand why we are running this build and capture task sequence, and what is the end goal of this? Do you all understand that? Okay, so I take that as a yes. Manju?
I am not sure, because I'm just not done any time just to
No, but when you're not sure,
quantify.
okay, since you're telling me you're not sure, my question here is, what is the end goal? What is the motto of doing this? Why are we doing this? Why did we run
Okay,
this build and
got
capture
it.
task
Yeah.
sequence? Mhm.
Okay. So today's session is like to cover, how to do a deployment part. So that only is the topic. That only I just
Nobody.
mentioned it.
So in the entire operating system deployment, what is the need of build and capture task sequence? Why do we need to run this? Anyone? Amar, Rohit, since other guys have understood, Anil, can you just explain, Manju, what is the importance of this particular session today in the OSD?
And this is basically to capture an image, and when we are deploying across a region, so we are first capturing on a reference machine, which is not joined to domain, and the required application which is globally used. Um, that's a basic idea. So we install it, capture it, and then we could deploy it on all the regions, all the other regions.
Yep. So you're right, Amar. So yes, so what we are doing here is the main agenda of today's session is capturing the image which will be globally used later, like mass deployments. You want to migrate some 10,000 machines from Windows XP to Windows 7, right? So all these 10,000 machines should have standard set of operating system settings, the same background, same wallpaper. They all need to have standard set of some applications into it, right? So there are some what we call it as a build or standard operating environment, SOE, right? So they are asking for a standard operating environment. So everybody should have a similar image, same image they all need to have, so that what is the benefit of having the same image? Tomorrow if there is any issue on one machine, you know that okay, the same issue is going to happen on all the other devices because it is having a standard image. It is bound to happen. So if you are able to find the root cause, then you can apply the same root cause, same solution for all the other machines. So typically companies would prefer to have a standard image to make the operating costs less, right? So that when the amount spent on resolving issues will be much lesser. And when it is standardized, so all the users are getting the same set of applications, right? Instead of somebody is downloading Qt PDF for their PDF reader, somebody else is downloading Adobe Reader, somebody is using Microsoft Reader, right? Instead of having multiple versions, everybody will be standardized, right? So that's the whole point. So now to keep 10,000 Windows XP machines standardized onto one Windows 7 image, first of all, you need to create that image. Somebody has to capture that image. That's what we are doing. We are building this VM to a Windows 7, then we are capturing it. On that we have, just to show you an example, I have put Google Chrome. But in real time, what you'll do, you'll have some 10 applications there, like .NET, Silverlight and all that, Visual C++, you will have 10 applications there. And then you might even have a standard wallpaper there. You can also have a standard screensaver there, right? Or some services you can have disabled, enabled. So some kind of customizations also you can do there. So after doing all these customizations, if you want, and also you can install patches. Instead of installing patches individually on all these 10,000 machines, put all the latest patches in one single image. Next time when this image is going to 10,000 machines, already the latest patches are installed because those are there already in the image. No need to again install the patches, right? So put all the patches inside this image, one single image. Like this, what and all you think are the global standards, put everything in this single image, capture it, then later on for the mass deployments you can use it. So the our session is very important, today's session, to build and capture an image, right, Manju?
Yeah, since it's an important session, so, I need to just have to try my end. Then, yeah, definitely I was not able to express the answer because
Sure, sure, no
so,
problem, no problem.
so many of steps involved since it's more important. So, just
Mhm.
need to try and then maybe.
Sure, Manju, sure. So I'm assuming that by now all of you have your own labs and you're already doing such kind of operating system, at least software distribution. Till software distribution, I'm assuming that you guys have already tried installing some applications, and if that's the case, then go ahead and even create one more VM and build a reference machine. Fine, guys. So that's all for today. So if you guys want to continue on the session, you can, or else you can drop off, and I'll complete this recording. I'll have this recording on till this OS image is done, and I'll upload it. And Monday, we're not having a session. We'll be having it on Tuesday.
Okay. Just to discuss here about the MDT part, if
Let me stop recording for a while in that case.
yeah.
Yeah, I've started the recording back. But see, anyways, there was no interaction user input that was given during this time. So I think it's safe because there's nothing there I was giving in between. If there was some inputs that I've given, that yes, it should be part of the recording. But anyways, so right now, as you can see, just to summarize for this video purpose, we have seen like voice is installed, right? It's completed. Now it is installing the application Google Chrome. That's the only application we gave. And after this, you'll see preparing the system center client agent. After that, it will prepare the OS, and finally, it will capture the Vim file under the location that we have shared, right? So, guys, feel free to drop off if you don't have any questions, and I'll continue this recording until this process is completed.
Yeah. Okay then. Bye bye.
Okay, sure. Take care. Bye. Have a nice day, and we're meeting on Tuesday. Okay.
Yeah. Happy weekend.
Happy weekend. Bye.
Bye, Manohar. I'm leaving.
Sure, Sai. Bye. Bye.